At about the hour when Lord Emsworth's train, whirling him and his son Freddie to London, had reached the halfway point in its journey, a very tall, very thin, very solemn young man, gleaming in a speckless top hat and a morning coat of irreproachable fit, mounted the steps of number 18 Wallingford Street, West Kensington, and rang the front doorbell. This done, he removed the hat, and having touched his forehead lightly with a silk handkerchief, for the afternoon sun was warm, gazed about him with a grave distaste. "A scaly neighbourhood," he murmured. The young man's judgment was one at which few people with an eye for beauty would have cavilled. When the great revolution against London's ugliness really starts, yelling hordes of artists and architects, maddened beyond endurance, finally take the law into their own hands and rage through the city, burning and destroying, Wallingford Street, West Kensington will surely not escape the torch. Long since it must have been marked down for destruction, for though it possesses certain merits of a low, practical kind, being inexpensive in the matter of rents, and handy for the buses and the underground, it is a peculiarly beastly little street, situated in the middle of one of those districts where London breaks out into a sort of eczema of red brick. It consists of two parallel rows of semi-detached villas, all exactly alike, each guarded by a ragged evergreen hedge, each with a coloured glass of an extremely regrettable nature let into the panels of the front door. And the sensitive young impressionists from the artist colony up Holland Parkway may sometimes be seen stumbling through it with hands over their eyes, muttering between clenched teeth, "How long? How long?" A small maid of all work appeared in answer to the bell and stood transfixed as the visitor, producing a monocle, placed it in his right eye and inspected her through it. "A warm afternoon," he said cordially. "Yes, sir." "But pleasant," urged the young man. "Tell me, is Mrs. Jackson at home?" "No, sir." "Not at home?" "No, sir." The young man sighed. "Ah, well," he said, "we must always remember that these disappointments are sent to us for some good purpose. No doubt they make us more spiritual. Will you inform her that I called? The name is Psmith." "Psmith." "Psmith, sir?" No, Psmith. I should explain to you that I started life without the initial letter, and my father always clung ruggedly to the plain Smith. But it seemed to me that there were so many Smiths in the world that a little variety might well be introduced. Smythe I took on as a cowardly evasion, nor do I approve of the too prevalent custom of tacking another name on in front by means of a hyphen. So I decided to adopt the Psmith. P, I should add for your guidance, is silent as in phthisis, psychic and ptarmigan. Do you follow me? Yes, sir." "Oh, you don't think," he said anxiously, "that I did wrong in pursuing this course?" "No, sir." "Splendid," said the young man, flicking a speck of dust from his coat sleeve. "Splendid, splendid." And with a courteous bow, he descended the steps and made his way down the street. The little maid, having followed him with bulging eyes till he was out of sight, closed the door and returned to the kitchen. Smith strolled meditatively on. The genial warmth of the afternoon soothed him. He hummed lightly, only stopping when, as he reached the end of the street, a young man of his own age rounded the corner rapidly, almost ran into him. "Sorry," said the young man. "Oh, hello, Smith." Smith gazed upon him with benevolent affection. "Comrade Jackson," he said, "this is well met. The one man of all others whom I would have wished to encounter. We will pop off somewhere, Comrade Jackson, should your engagements permit, and restore our tissues with a cup of tea. I had hoped to touch the Jackson family for some slight refreshment, But I was informed that your wife was out. Mike Jackson laughed. Philip isn't out. Not out. Then, said Smith, pained, there has been dirty work done this day, for I was turned from the door. It would not be exaggerating to say that I was given the bird. Is this the boasted Jackson hospitality? Oh, Phyllis is giving a tea to some of her old school pals, explained Mike. She told the maid to say she wasn't at home to anybody else. I'm not allowed in myself. Enough, Comrade Jackson, said Smith agreeably. Say no more. If you yourself have been booted out in spite of all the loving, honouring and obeying your wife promised at the altar, who am I to complain? And possibly one can console oneself by reflecting we are well out of it. These gatherings of old girls' school chums are not the sort of function your man of affairs wants to get lugged into. Capital company as we are, Comrade Jackson, we should doubtless have been extremely in the way. I suppose the conversation would have dealt exclusively with reminiscences of dear old school, of tales of surreptitious cocoa drinking in the dormitories, and what the deportment mistress said when Angela was found chewing tobacco in the shrubbery. Yes, I fancy we've not missed a lot. By the way, I don't think much of the new home. True, I only saw it from outside, but no, I don't think much of it. Best we can afford. And who, said Smith, am I to taunt my boyhood friend with his honest poverty, especially as I myself was standing on the very brink of destitution? You? I, in person. That low moaning sound you hear is the wolf bivouacked outside my door. But I thought your uncle gave you rather a good salary. Well, so he did, but my uncle and I are about to part company. From now on he, so to speak, will take the high road and I'll take the low road. I dine with him tonight, and over the nuts and wine I shall hand him the bad news that I propose to resign my position in the firm. I have no doubt that he supposed he was doing me a good turn by starting me in his fish business, but even what little experience I have had of it has convinced me that it is not my proper sphere. The whisper flies round the clubs, Smith has not found his niche. I am not, said Smith, an unreasonable man. I realise that humanity must be supplied with fish. I am not averse from a bit of fish myself. But to be professionally connected with a firm that handles the material in the raw is not my idea of a large life work. Remind me to tell you sometime what it feels like to sling yourself out of bed at 4 a.m. and go down to toil in Billingsgate Market. No, there is money in fish. My uncle's made a pot of it. But what I feel is that there must be other walks in life for a bright young man. I chuck it tonight. What you going to do then? That, Comrade Jackson, is more or less on the knees of the gods. Tomorrow morning I think I will stroll around to an employment agency and see how the market for bright young men stands. Do you know a good one? Oh, Phyllis always go to Miss Clarkson's in Shaftesbury Avenue, but Miss Clarkson's in Shaftesbury Avenue. I'll make a note of it. Meanwhile, I wonder if you saw the Morning Globe today. No? Why? I had an advertisement in it, in which I expressed myself as willing, indeed eager, to tackle any undertaking that had nothing to do with fish. I am confidently expecting shoals of replies. I look forward to winnowing the heap and selecting the most desirable. Pretty hard to get a job these days, said Mike doubtfully. Not if you have something superlatively good to offer. What have you got to offer? My services, said Smith with faint reproach. What has? As anything. I make no restrictions. Would you care to take a look at my manifesto? I have a copy in my pocket. Smith produced from inside his immaculate waistcoat a folded clipping. I should welcome your opinion of it, Comrade Jackson. I've frequently said that for sturdy common sense you stand alone. Your judgment should be invaluable. The advertisement, which some hours earlier had so electrified the Honourable Freddie Threepwood in the smoking room at Blandings Castle, seemed to affect Mike, whose mind was of the stolid and serious type, somewhat differently. He finished his perusal and stared speechlessly. "Neat, don't you think?" said Smith. "Covers the ground adequately?" I think so. "Do you mean to say you're going to put dribble like that in the paper?" asked Mike. "I have put it in the paper. As I told you, it appeared this morning. By this time tomorrow I shall no doubt have finished sorting out the first batch of replies." Mike's emotion took him back to the phraseology of school days. "You are an ass!" Smith restored the clipping to his waistcoat pocket. "You wound me, Comrade Jackson," he said. "I had expected a broader outlook from you. In fact, I rather supposed that you would have rushed round instantly to the offices of the Journal and shoved in a similar advertisement yourself. But nothing that you can say can damp my buoyant spirit. The cry goes round Kensington and district, 'Smith is off!' In what direction the cry omits to state, but that information the future will supply. And now, Comrade Jackson, let us trickle into yonder tea shop and drink success to the venture in a cup of the steaming. I had a particularly hard morning today among the whitebait, and I need refreshment."